The Zoom on my tablet is updating. So we're gonna need to wait just a second before I have enough, or before I have the computer that I can write on. Do we have questions before then? I had to miss dinner because Europeans eat way too late. The class asks, are the notes from the review going to be posted? So probably the notes that I take on the tablet won't be posted, but the notes from all of the lectures, I'll make sure all of that stuff is posted after the Zoom today.
I am in class.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Let's see, it's 3:02. So we promised we were going to do a couple things today. Oh, wait, let's see. Christian said, did someone actually take my off the wall idea for a camera in the classroom and make it reality? Looks like Daly did that, man. So, or she was at least the one that was making it happen. So you can thank her for that. Okay, so yes, today is the second lecture of the Nutrition Assistants, where last time, remember, we talked about a lot of big ideas about what do we think kind of within our own political and maybe economic beliefs, the level of support the government should be providing. And then we gave an overview of how these programs kind of evolved over time. And then I got frantic at the end of the hour thinking, oh my gosh, we've just gotten to the current program. And so we agreed kind of as a class that for the first 20 minutes today, I'm going to finish up this lecture in terms of talking about what exactly does the current SNAP program look like. And then after we finish that 20 minutes, we are going to do a review where hopefully, as always, you guys will have some good ideas or questions about what to talk about. Thumbs up. I can't actually see anybody in the classroom. So as a reminder, if you guys are comfortable sharing your cameras, that would be awesome. If you're not comfortable, that's also okay. Thanks, guys. Okay, so SNAP program. Remember, we studied the yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. All right, I'm not quite sure what to get. Is there a menu?
Yeah, if you
Okay, Austin was at Chick-fil-A or something. Okay, so remember we evolved from World War II's food stamp program, which was not a food security program, all the way to Robert Kennedy's traveling to the Mississippi Delta, seeing the poverty there, starting up the food stamp program in the mid 60s, going away from sort of purchasing the food stamps towards trying to reduce the stigma associated with these food stamps. So we went from actually stamps to issuing an EBT, which looks like a debit card. And then in 2008, we changed the name. So it was no longer called the food stamp program. It was called the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, in a way to sort of reduce that stigma. So we talked a lot about what we thought we should do for the government policy associated with food security. Now let's talk about what we actually do. So I want to talk about the eligibility requirements. And then I want to talk about, once you've qualified for those eligibility requirements, how do those benefits actually work? So what do you get under the SNAP assistance? And then once we know kind of what you get under these assistance programs, we can talk about what can you use that money on? What are you entitled or authorized to use this stuff on? Okay. So the current program is called an entitlement program. So if you can think all the way back to, I think lecture 3, we gave an overview of sort of the public policy process. And we talked about different way that subsidy programs could be funded. We talked about programs that the funding wasn't guaranteed versus programs where the funding was guaranteed but fixed. This is like neither of those programs. So this is an entitlement program, which means if someone qualifies under the benefits that we have laid out, the government will give you these benefits no matter how many people are eligible, right? So when we saw a massive rise in unemployment at the beginning of the pandemic, it doesn't matter that the numbers eligible for SNAP went up by a whole bunch. As long as you qualify, it doesn't matter what the outlay is associated with the government. The government has promised to provide you these benefits, right? So this is a program where the cap isn't fixed. The maximum amount you can spend depends on how many people are eligible. And if you're eligible, you automatically get it. Okay. What does it take to be eligible? Eligibility. Can you guys see that? It looks a little bit like serial killer writing, but I think you can, with my words, you can figure out what we're talking about. Okay, so there are 3 different types of requirements, eligibility requirements to qualify for SNAP. The first are the income requirements. And so at the really, really general level, we say you have to have low income. And that looks, there are 2 different parts of this, low income. Okay, there is the part related to gross income, which says that your gross income has to be less than or equal to 100%, 130% of the federal poverty standard. Okay, so the question is, I emphasize the word gross. What the heck do I mean there when I say that your gross income has to be less than or equal to 100%, 130% of the federal poverty standard? What is gross income?
After taxes income.
Or possibly something different than that.
Like your
before
after deductions.
Before deductions, yeah, exactly. So your gross income means before taxes are taken out, before your Social Security deductions, before all of this sort of government stuff is taken out. That's your gross income, right? And so this says that gross number has to be less than 130% of the federal poverty standard. And then beyond that, we've got a net income requirement. And Lara, what is net income? You got it.
After taxes.
Hey, all right. So that's the net income is after all of these government things have been taken out. So your net income has to be less than 100% of that federal poverty standard. All right, let Jack in. Okay, so does anybody know? So we've got these two income requirements. You have to satisfy both of them to be eligible. Gross income less than 130% of the federal poverty standard, net income less than 100% of the federal poverty standard. What is your guess here about what that poverty standard is? So for a family of 4, for example, what have we set that poverty standard at? Does anybody have a guess? Jack, you look like a silhouette, man.
Sorry, let me turn a light. I've been
No,
outside my
no.
Wi-Fi.
You're fine. You're fine. I'm just making fun of you, man. Dude, you're totally fine. Frick. Sorry.
You scared the poor guy. You just ran him off.
Sorry, man. Okay, so the question is not whether Jack is a ghost. The question is how much income, what is the federal poverty standard for a family of 4?
26,500.
Whoa! Did you cheat?
Yes.
It's just like, I don't have time for the nonsense of that class. Yeah, that's exactly right. So the federal poverty standard for a family of 4 is now $26,500. So your gross income has to be less than or equal to 130% of that. Your net income less than 100%. So that relates to your income. In addition to your income, we've got financial asset limits. No. First, let me ask you this. So do we think that's fair? So do we think, remember we saw a couple of years ago, we got some information on Trump's tax returns, and it turned out that he hadn't, he had either made low or no income, according to these two measures of income, for several years in a row. Does anybody say, you know what, that's not a problem. As long as he's satisfying these requirements, I'm good with that. People like Jeff Bezos, right, are other classic examples where when they've got all their money tied up in stocks, their actual income levels as reported to the government are small. Do you think that is, anybody have an argument why yes or no, those guys should be allowed to claim food assistance? Or anybody just not bothered and want to get through the facts? Daly says no, you're what? No to what? Because they need to be paying taxes on their money. Yeah, okay, so, and I think the majority of us would say, well, probably for those people who are visibly, what we would say, living at a standard of living well above that poverty standard, we would say no, right? And so that's where this second criteria comes in. The second is that there are limits on your financial assets. Okay. So, right. So even if, say you're a dentist, yeah, exactly. So Daly says you need to be paying taxes on your money, even if it is in stocks. And so that's the idea behind this financial asset requirement, which is, suppose you are of a middle class family and someone is in between jobs at the moment. If you're currently living at some standard of living, this program isn't designed for you, right? This program is designed for people who are truly poor. And so these financial asset limits are complicated, but the basic idea is if you have enough financial assets, you're going to be required to spend those down, right? Draw on your own sort of savings, risk protections before you draw on the government's requirements. There are two exceptions to that. One is you don't have to spend down your house. So your house is exempted from these financial asset limits. The second is your car is exempted to a certain level of value, right? So if you are driving just a regular human person car, it's going to be exempted from these financial asset limits. Whereas if you are driving a tricked out Lamborghini, that's going to be above and beyond sort of the thing that's necessary to get you to work, right? And so you may be required to sort of sell that car and buy a regular human car before you can qualify for these food stamps or the SNAP program. Comments about that? It is 9 o'clock for me, but I feel like you guys are acting like it's 9 o'clock for you guys too. It's all going okay over there. Okay.
I've been up till 3 a.m. 2 nights in a row, so I'm dragging.
Oh, sweet. So we can expect no offensive comments on this recorded, importantly, recorded Zoom session. Is that right?
Hey, man, offensive is in the eye of the beholder. I apologize if you are offended by anything.
I like that apology, and then it sounded a little bit like a non-apology, right? If you have been offended, I'm sorry to you. I'm just teasing you, Christian. Okay, so Daly says that they're going to have to communicate via the chat. Okay, and so the third requirement here, there are citizenship requirements. Citizenship requirements, and the first is if you are undocumented, which means you are here without a valid visa. You're not a citizen and you've come without a valid visa, you are ineligible for this program. Otherwise, there are situations where you may be eligible, but you may not be. And so you're eligible if you come under under refugee status. So if you've been driven out of your home country, so for example, Ukrainian migrants, immigrants that are coming here who've been driven out as a result of the war, they will be immediately eligible for food stamps or SNAP assistance. Okay, so if you come under refugee status, you'll be eligible. Let's see, if you've lived here, so if you are a documented, so you're here legally and you've been here for at least 5 years, then you are eligible. And then third, children are always eligible, regardless of how many years they've been here. What do you think? How do you guys feel about those standards?
I guess my question is on the second part of citizenship, you have to be here at least 5 years. Is that just to, like, why is it, like, is there a certain reason that they're not doing that till 5 years? Or I'm just kind of like wondering about that.
That's a good point. It's late here, so off the top of my head, the requirements aren't immediately why the 5-year requirement. So 5 is just sort of like a convenient number, but I think it's establishing some level of permanence, right? If you can think you're only here for 2 weeks, you are not really, it's sort of like we're subsidizing another country, right? We're providing assistance to someone where we think maybe some other country should be providing them support. It's the fact,
Okay.
it's the idea of permanence, that they've got to be here. They've got to be sort of a resident of the US for them to be provided with these protections. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, so those are the eligibility requirements. If you meet the income requirements, you meet the financial asset limit requirements, and you meet the citizenship requirements, you are eligible for SNAP benefits. Okay, so then now let's talk about what the heck those benefits are. So the benefits under SNAP are cleverly designed, I'd say, in that they are reduced according to your level of income, right? So if somebody is really, we think that someone who is relatively well off, so maybe meets those income and financial asset requirements, but they're just below that border, maybe they don't need as much protection, as much support as someone who is just absolutely desolate, right? Without any kind of assets, right? So what we employ is something called a benefits reduction rate. Which says the maximum benefit, so for a family of 4, the maximum benefits you can receive are $649 per month for a family of 4. And then for every single dollar of net income that you have, we reduce those SNAP benefits by 30 cents. Okay, so for every dollar of net income implies a reduction in benefits of 30 cents. What do you guys think about that? Anybody say, you know what, actually, maybe I don't like this program. So Alex says it was cleverly designed. Maybe I disagree. Maybe I think this is the wrong strategy to be using. Or you can even play devil's advocate and give me something that could be conceivably an argument.
So that net income is your yearly income, correct?
Yeah, it's going to be monthly here. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's $1. It's the same number, whether it's $1 a month or $1 in a month or $1 in a year. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So how about the, or no, let me open it back up one more time. Do you guys have thoughts about why that might be bad? Thinking about economic incentives. So how about this? Last time, we were talking about what level of hunger we should be providing. And some people said, you know, what we really need to be doing is providing support for these people to find gainful employment, right? And if we think about economic incentives, this says, this benefits reduction rate says, the more money that I'm making from work, the less of a payment that I'm getting, the less of a SNAP payment that I'm getting. So maybe, thinking as an economist, we could say this reduces the incentive for these people to work, right? The more that they work, the harder they work, the less of a SNAP benefit they get. Anybody have comments on that?
I mean, I can't relate it directly to SNAP, but I mean, you have seen that quite a bit though. I mean, it's been proven, I mean, especially with COVID-19, I mean, a lot of people went on unemployment because they, in essence, made more off of unemployment than working their 9-to-5 job. And we saw a huge labor reduction in that sense. So I think, yeah, it's exactly what that probably happens in this type of situation too.
And I think yeah, so that's exactly right. And I think most economists would agree with you that, yeah, all things considered, this is this does kind of at the margin reduce the incentive to work. The question is to what extent that is a meaningful reduction, right? So maybe there is some effect there, but is it like an economically significant effect? And so one important thing here is that there are some super complicated employment requirements. That says employment requirements. So they're really complicated and they're very, very not perfect. So if someone wants to sort of satisfy the face of these employment requirements while not actually trying to be employed, that is something that they could achieve. And so the truth of the matter is, yeah, we haven't figured out the exact way to perfectly align incentives to seek and maintain employment with these benefits reductions. But we do think it's a relatively fair way to be providing the support, right? It doesn't make sense that someone who's absolutely desolate should be getting the exact same as or getting no more than someone who's right at the poverty line, but it's just with a little bit of help kind of bumped up at or above that poverty line. Okay, so then the question is, this is how benefits work. What can I spend those benefits on? Authorized uses. And so the idea is that this can be used for authorized food and beverages at authorized retailers. So the important point there, so it's food and beverages at retailers, but the important part there is the word authorized in front of both of those. So for both of those, there are unauthorized products. So let's talk first about what are the unauthorized products. Tobacco, alcohol, non-food items, and hot foods, ready to eat. Okay, so a couple of people were talking about fast food and how fast food maybe is cheaper and certainly easier than going to the grocery store and buying possibly healthier groceries. So in this list of unauthorized products, this says fast food is ineligible under SNAP. You may not spend your SNAP money on fast food. What do you guys think about that? Or maybe some logic behind why you support that or don't.
Well, in theory, it's probably because fast food isn't necessarily nutritious and it's more expensive to eat out versus go to the grocery store. So
Lara,
Yeah.
what if I told you I can't buy my kid McDonald's chicken nuggets, but I can buy them a Snickers bar or ice
well, I'm
cream?
not saying it makes sense. I'm
Yep.
just saying that's probably the theory behind it, not necessarily that I agree with it.
That's not quite the theory. So it's not about the healthfulness of the food. Can anybody think what it's about?
Honestly, a Snickers may be more nutritious than some McNuggets. I'm just saying.
Oh, but dude, they're so delicious with that barbecue sauce.
I don't know. I bring sauce from a different restaurant when I'm getting McNuggets. I just can't get behind any of what they got.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I agree with you at all.
I'm gonna be the person who brings like the policy process back into it, but do
Yeah.
the big major retailers like is that what they have more of a say? They're like, well, in negotiating the farm bill, like Walmart can
Well, think about
does
Costco
that
though.
or not really?
Costco, Sam's Club, they have the food court. They have those rotisserie chickens, which are delicious. You can't spend your money on that stuff, right? It's hot foods which are ready to eat. You can't spend your money. Okay, so Hallie says groceries last longer than a single meal from fast food. Depending on what you buy, Hallie, you are probably right about that. That's not the idea either. So rather than just sort of like making you guess at what the idea is, I'll just tell you. So the idea is that we want them to be spending this money on food. Hot foods ready to eat are food plus labor, right? We've had to have somebody preparing this food. And so what we're really doing there is buying not only food, but the service of those workers to prepare that food. And we've decided, whether rightly or wrongly, we don't want to pay for that extra thing here, right? So we're saying that anything that's hot and ready to eat is unqualified because it's got some value added thing beyond just the meal itself. Okay, other questions there? And then once you're satisfied with that, authorized retailer,
So,
go ahead.
with the non-food items, so they can't buy like soap and laundry detergent
Nope.
and other necessities like that.
You can't, not under SNAP, that's right. So, and so Grace, this is what goes back to that question of the extremely close correlation between hunger and food insecurity and poverty, right? For some reason, we've decided we want to make protections for food insecurity that is sort of carved out of that broader issue of poverty and low income, where the question that I put to you guys and that I honestly believe is, well, if the underlying issue is their income and their inability to purchase necessities, maybe we should be targeting that rather than just this one small aspect of that issue of poverty. You have follow-up thoughts there, Grace?
Well, it's just really interesting because I've recently, like, I heard this story about this child that his mom did not have laundry detergent, and so his clothes smelled bad, and he was in elementary school, and this child, was very embarrassed about this. He was getting made fun of for that his clothes smelled, so he just stopped going to school. And the school called the mom and was like, "Why isn't whatever his name is, in school?" And she was like, "Well, he's embarrassed and such." And then this like church that, anyway, whatever, but they paid for her to like go do laundry at the laundry mat and like gave her detergent and stuff, and then he was able to go back to school. So I'm just thinking, if they can't like buy these things, then it's just going to create this generational problem because he's not going to be educated.
That's so Grace. Yes, that is part of the point here is I just worry that sometimes when we think about issues of poverty, of low income, we think about it from the aspect of, well, why don't you just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and go get a job? And we miss these important intergenerational. So you said two things right there, right? You said one, which was the shame of it. So I carry around this emotional baggage starting at this really, really young age as a result of this poverty, which was nothing to do with me, right? I'm a kid. This isn't my fault. And yet I already am starting to feel the shame of poverty. And you said a second thing, which is it's starting to impact his access to education. It's starting to impact his learning. So now not only do I have this emotional baggage, I'm falling behind from my peers at school. My opportunities for the future are already being limited as a elementary school kid as a result of this poverty. Yeah, you're exactly right. And so I don't have any answers, right? But I think the first step is realizing the true excruciating nuance of the issue, right? It's so much more nuanced than pull myself up by the bootstraps. That's exactly right. And so for right or wrong, the government has decided we're going to carve out this one part of the poverty question rather than other parts. Yep, that's exactly right. Other comments there?
Could this be like an issue with like, say you're like addicted to drugs and all you care about is drugs, and the more money, like your food's paid for, but you find like the sweet spot of I make this much money to go spend on drugs and the government pays for my food,
Yeah.
and then you just stay there.
And so,
Is
John,
that-
that's another hard part of this, right? The issue, you're posing sort of a contrasting argument of why maybe even this is too much support, right? That money to a certain extent is fungible, right? I can spend money. So even if I can spend only this money on only a certain amount of stuff, on just food, if all of a sudden I'm able to spend that money on food, then some of the money that I was going to spend on food in the absence of this money, now maybe that money is freed up for other things. And if there are reasons why people aren't able to make the choices which are the best choices for themselves and for their family, meaning things like addiction, meaning things like mental health, mental disorders, maybe even this type of support where they have sort of this freedom to spend this money isn't the right part of the support, right? Because what you're saying is that we're sort of contributing to this issue of addiction, right? We're sort of giving this person the opportunity to further that addiction without kind of coupled outlets for treatment. Yeah, that's exactly right, man. Did you say cool? Cool. Okay. So that is the issue of unauthorized, those are the products that are unauthorized. And the authorized retailers is super easy, right? It is anywhere that sells groceries. Pretty much. So if you sell an item of food or beverage that is not in here, it qualifies. I'm talking gas stations. I'm talking dollar stores, anywhere that sells grocery items pretty much is an authorized retailer. Okay. And I think that is all we've got for the nutrition assistance lecture. So unless you guys have other comments or questions about this, we can now turn it over to review. And I'm leaving the review to you guys. So you're driving the bus. What do we need reviewing on?
I don't think any of us can drive this bus. I don't know if any of us have a Class B certification on our license.
Dude, you're driving this motorcycle, man.
Now that I can get behind.
I know.
Could we go over? Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I heard Grace and Ashley talking. You guys have
Yeah,
to now
when-
fight to the death to see who wants
When
to.
is the exam?
The exam is tomorrow. As usual, you have all day. It'll come open at 8 a.m. Oklahoma time. After this, somehow I'm going to find it within myself to write a quiz. So it'll come open at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and then it will be ended at 11:59 p.m. tomorrow. Grace, did you have a comment? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Could we just go over like one of the old quizzes like you have done for the last couple? I found that.
Yes,
super
I knew you were
helpful.
going to ask that. You found it helpful, Grace, because I rely heavily on those quizzes. I don't know if you've noticed. You haven't noticed at all? Okay, let me try to pull it up here. While I'm pulling it up, if anybody does have other things they want to talk about, that'll work.
How's Belgium?
It has been good. The weather has been very dreary and I have had terrible jet lag, but it's been really good to see all my buddies. Except for that, I didn't get to eat dinner tonight. How's Oklahoma? That good?
Flat.
Flat? Is that what you said?
Yes.
It's very nice.
It's
It's
what?
75 degrees. Very nice outside.
I'm really jealous, man, because it has been rainy and nasty here.
Sunny. And,
The town that I'm in is called Leuven, Belgium, and it's one of those towns that didn't get hit very hard in World War II. So we've got a really, really ancient old town that looks like, I mean, it is from the medieval times, but when it's rainy out here and all gray in this old town, it looks like I'm probably going to get the Black Death just at any moment. So yeah, fun stuff.
oh wow. Hmm.
All right, guys, I'm in. Now I just have to find the quiz. Whew. 51 questions last year. My guess is it won't be that long this year since it's almost 11 o'clock here. All right, let's see. Okay, which of the following statements are true? Oh, can you not see that? Dang it. There we go. Which of the following statements are true? Food labels can be misleading. Food labels sometimes send false information to consumers. All aspects of food labels should be highly regulated, and food labels can provide valuable information to consumers. What do y'all think?
I think 1, 2, and 4.
I also think that thing. Right, and so that's just the basic test taking thing that this sucker says all aspects should be highly, and we know that all is very rarely the right answer. That's exactly right. I know you guys hate true or false. Does this, I don't think this qualifies as true or false, particularly because we've already gone over the question, right? Okay, good. How about, there's a true or false. Under the First Amendment, the government cannot prohibit any commercial speech. That's just a regular test taking question, right?
False,
False, why not?
because they can prohibit it if it is intentionally misleading, and there's another thing that I can.
That's exactly right, yeah. Yes, exactly, okay. Let's see. Ooh. Okay, yeah. Under or according to the unfolding theory, regulation is not needed for food labels other than to prohibit false claims. Do you guys remember unfolding theory? So unfolding theory, remember, was when we said, suppose the government isn't mandating nutrition labels, but there are 4 snack foods on the market, each with different percentages of your recommended salt intake. And so we said under unfolding theory, the food product with the lowest level of sodium would say, hey, I can capture the whole kind of health food market by signaling that I am the lowest salt alternative, right? And then under unfolding, the second most healthful of those products would say, well, maybe I'm not as good as that guy, but I can still beat out these two with lower or with higher sodium than me in this market by showing how much sodium content I had. And so the unfolding theory says kind of one by one, these people are incentivized to tell the truth. You guys remember that now? Jack, were you going to say something?
Isn't that, I don't know, this is what I got. Is it false?
According to unfolding theory, regulation is not needed. So under unfolding theory, we said that this statement is true, but we also said, so I see what you're saying by false, but because we also said for a lot of reasons, we think unfolding theory may not be true, right? Probably the most stark reason that we don't believe in unfolding theory is because these nutrition claims used to not be required and they were not provided.
Okay, I was just wondering because I have we need mandatory info because the market cannot cure itself. So I didn't know if that.
I'm not sure that that statement is always true. I'd go
Okay.
back through my notes because I think that let's see when that might have come up. Do you know what in what context you have that written down?
As when we were talking about the daily requirement value of sodium.
Right. Yeah. And so this story was, oh, I see. So Jack, what I wrote on the board was even for mandatory information, do we need regulation? And so the
Oh.
unfolding theory was the question or was the statement or argument that maybe we don't.
Okay.
And then we talked about why we think that unfolding theory may not be valid. Okay. Oops.
So is that true or false?
That question was true.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I'm not going to ask any true false questions. Ooh, what a good question. The policymaker should always choose food safety technology D over food safety technology C. So this is one of those where it has the word always in it. Is this one of those trick always questions or one of those go with your gut always questions?
It depends.
Okay, that's usually the right answer. Give me your logic there, man.
I don't think it does.
What do you mean, Jack?
I mean, I don't know when in what case it would because you have a higher percentage of reduction in harmful microbes and it's a lower cost too.
Exactly, right? So the answer,
That's-
yeah, that's exactly right, Jack. Yeah. So the answer there is yes. The government should always choose technology D over technology C. And the reasoning is technology D is the efficient technology. So if I wanted to guarantee protection at the level of 85% reduction in harmful microbes, and I could choose option C, D, or E, option D gives me level of 85 protection and actually even gives me higher. It gives me 95% protection and it's lower cost. So it is the efficient technology by which to guarantee 85% reduction. You guys remember this lecture? Cool. I wonder what this is. Sometimes this is like Christmas, just to open this thing up and see what I wrote. Oh. Great. Okay, so which of the following statements are true of poverty? Select all that apply. Hunger and poverty are intricately connected. America has one of the lowest rates of poverty among high-income countries. Poverty rates have fallen faster between 1980 to present than they did from 1930 to 1970. And the prevalence of poverty is greater among Black Americans than white Americans.
1 in 4.
1 in 4 are the ones that I agree with too. So remember we said America has one of the, with respect to point 2, America actually has one of the highest rates of poverty, either the highest or the second highest, depending on how you measure it, among all of those high income countries. And we said that poverty rates from 1980 have been relatively flat with maybe an uptick as of 2020. But from 1930 to 1970, they fell dramatically. Okay. Even if a household meets the income requirement, it may be required to spend down financial assets before being eligible for SNAP. I mean, we talked about this like 25 seconds ago, right? The answer is true. That's the financial asset requirement. I think that's okay. All right, let's do one more. Yeah, it's another one we talked about 20 seconds ago. Tobacco and alcoholic beverages are unauthorized products under the SNAP program. True. Good. ¿Está bien? Well then, guys, that's all of that stuff we got. Unless you guys have other questions, I got to get to writing this dadgum exam. I am totally happy to take other questions. Can you post your notes? Yeah, so Hallie, I'm just realizing I don't think I did. And so, yes, I will post all of the, I've got them right here. I'll post all of these lecture notes right now. What else, guys? Have a fun time. Thanks, Daly and everybody. Going once, going twice. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.